Hi everybody, my name is Madeline Farina, and I am here to talk to you today about how to identify your target market and solidify your branding, and why both of those things are so important for you as a small business to do. I think that both of those things are something that can be really easy to say, you know what, I'll do that in a month, or I'll get to that when I have time. But actually, I'm here to tell you why if you set aside an afternoon, maybe next week, and start to identify these things and really work on those things, it's going to save you so much time and money. First, we're going to talk about target market, give a quick overview of what it is, break down demographics and psychographics, and also I'm going to tell you why knowing your target market is really going to help you. And then we're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about how to even start to identify your brand in the first place. And then we're going to talk about how to build a brand guide so you can leave with some really tangible next steps on how to really build your brand. Let's start with just some basic definitions of target market and branding. So target market is a group of people who are most likely buyers of your product or services. And branding is a set of associations linked to a name, mark, or symbol associated with a product or service. And it's much like a reputation. It's what people think about whenever they think about your company. But first, let's start with the target market. So, why is target market so important, and why is it so important to really have a solid idea of what it is for your company? So, like we said before, target market is a group of people who are most likely to buy your product or service. So that means that they are the people who are most likely to give you money and to keep your business afloat. So those people should probably be top of mind constantly because they are responsible for keeping you in business. So as you make decisions, they should always be in front of your mind. And that doesn't just mean for marketing, that means for sales strategy, business strategy, everything. And also, something I hear a lot with small businesses is they go, you know, I feel like my target market is just kind of whoever likes it, whoever likes my product or service, or whoever wants to buy it. It's just everyone. But I'm here to tell you today that your product, your target market cannot be everyone. That's impossible, because if you're selling to everyone, you're actually selling to no one. You're not having a strong point of view. You're not targeting a very specific type of person. Everybody's really different. Humans, we know, are so different. So it's really impossible to target everyone. We'll get into more of that later. And also, knowing your target market helps you narrow in on how to spend your money and time. So when you have a really clear idea of who your target market is, you're going to know where you should be spending your advertising money, because you'll know what they're interested in and how you can find them and how you can access them more. So again, we'll get into that more, but understand that when you know who your target market is, you will have such an easier time coming up with a strategy on how to reach them and get them to buy your stuff. So let's talk about how to identify your target market. So where to even begin if you don't have an idea of who your target market is right now? So first thing you can think of is when you're creating your product or service, who are you thinking of when you're doing that? Are you thinking of yourself? That's a great starting point, actually. You are a person with interests that are similar to other people and probably have a lifestyle that's similar to other people. So if you're creating your product or services for you, that's a really great place to start. So think about that. Maybe it's your mom. Maybe it's your kid. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's a girl that you follow on Instagram who you think is really cool. All of these are really great starting points. So again, just start to think about when you're creating a new product or you're thinking about the future of your products, who comes to mind when you picture who's buying them. Another thing to think about is who's going to appreciate your company's values. So you're a small business, you're not Amazon that's just making things as cheap as you possibly can. You are a company that has some values, and For example, if you're a sustainable fashion company and you're using organic fabric, that's probably not the cheapest fabric you can buy. So you're going to want to target people who appreciate that you are using organic fabric in your clothes, and target them so you know that they will pay extra for the fact that you're going the extra mile to create clothing responsibly. Who are those people? And what do they like? What else are they interested in? That's another really great place to start. Another way to think about it is who needs what your company is selling. If you're making sustainable clothing, like, who are the people who are looking for sustainable clothes? You probably shouldn't be targeting people who are totally fine buying their clothes at Target that aren't sustainable. You're going to want to look for people who actually need an organic cotton t-shirt. So who are those people? Where are they? And another really, really, really great place to start is to think about who is already buying from you. So you probably have some analytics on your website if you have one, like Squarespace or Google Analytics or something like that. Even just from, talking to people at markets or pop-up shops or something like that. You probably already have an idea of the people who are already buying from you. That's a really great place to start. That are not people that you have to target or acquire. They're already there. Why do they buy from you? Why do they like you? Why do they keep coming back and buying your stuff? That's a really other great place to start. So, when you've kind of identified who you think it could possibly be, you're going to want to kind of build this out a little bit more and get deeper into the details. And you can do this by identifying your target market's demographics and psychographics. So your demographics are external or physical factors such as age, gender, location, etc. So this is something that you can find on a census document. Pretty straightforward. It's just basic stuff, pretty tangible stuff and facts about people. You can identify how much money they make. That's really important to know. Their education level. Did they graduate high school? Do they have an MBA? What is their status on that? How old are they? Really important to know. And where they live is also really important to know. So these are just basic facts that are really easy to identify. That's what demographics is. Then there's psychographics. These are a little bit more abstract. They're factors such as motivations, beliefs, priorities, etc. So this is the stuff that your target market cares about. It's the relationships they have, the relationships that are important to them. It's where they spend their time on the weekends. It's whether or not they live a really healthy life, or maybe they're more just chill people who don't really worry about that. So what are their interests? What gets them going? What makes them excited to buy something? Psychographics turn them into more of a human than just whatever is written on a page, which I think is arguably a little bit more important, especially when you are really identifying your target market. It rounds them out more. Once you have identified who you think your target market is, you've really have a clear idea, you've identified the demographics for them, you've identified the psychographics for them, then you're going to want to make sure that they actually exist. Because again, you can kind of be in an echo chamber when you're thinking about who these people are, but you want to really put it to the test to make sure that they exist, and there are a lot of them who will buy your stuff. So there are a couple ways to do that. You can go on social media and look through some followers that you have. Maybe follow back some of your followers that you have and see what they're interested in, who else they follow, what do they post about, what do they comment on, what other things do they like. Social media can give you a lot of really good information. Another way to do this is through your competition. So hopefully you've identified some other companies that are your competition, that sell the same things you do or have the same aesthetic or values, etc. And so then you can look on maybe their social media or look on their website and see who you think their target market is. And then, look at some of their followers and go through their profiles and see what they're interested in and who else they follow and what they're posting about. So you can kind of like build a really visual and full just idea of who this target customer is and see if it matches with what you have written out and what you thought about. Another good way to do this is with surveys. So in order to find people to send surveys to, you can kind of find people in your life who kind of fit your target market, or like ask people who you know if they know anybody who fits your target market. And you can probably find some. It's not too hard, especially when they're in your probable social circle. Like your target market is probably somebody who's pretty close to you, or it's you. So you can gather some people that kind of fit into that same profile, get their emails, get their phone numbers, and then you can ask them if it's okay to start sending surveys. So you can send them surveys through Typeform or SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or something, and ask them questions about anything. You can ask them about, what they did this weekend, or how they like to spend their time, or what's important to them whenever they buy clothes, or whenever they buy a specific product. You can find out a lot of information, and people are usually willing to help. You can give them some gift cards or something for participating, but people are pretty open. They love answering questions about themselves. So that's like some real life people. Another way to do this is with in-person conversations. So, you can do the same thing. You can, if you see somebody on the street who you think matches your target customer profile, if you're really extroverted, you could go up to them and ask them some questions, or, just see what's up. Or if you're starting to go back to any markets or pop-up shops or fairs that are happening as the world starts to open up, talk to the people who stop by your booth and just ask them some questions, get their opinions, just kind of see what else is up, like what they're interested in. That's really, really a great way to identify and see if they fit your target market. And another way to do this is kind of the in-person version of surveys, but you can have a focus group. You can just maybe invite some people out for drinks, have a little agenda, pay for their drinks, and ask them some questions. Let's talk about why all of this matters once you've identified your target market. What will knowing your target market get you? It can get you a lot of things. First of all, and something that I think is really, really important, it helps you take advantage of digital ad audiences. So if you've ever tried to build an ad on the back end of Facebook, for maybe Facebook and Instagram, you'll know that you can get extremely targeted with your audiences. You can choose age, location, location in the past 20 days. You can identify their interests. You can choose what other brands they shop at. So you can get extremely, extremely targeted with these digital audiences. And that's important because when you are getting really good at knowing your digital audiences, the cheaper your ads will be. They're going to be cheaper and they're going to perform better. So you have an opportunity to really target very specific people and not pay that much money for some really high quality customers. So the way to do that is to know your audience really, really well. Another example is with collaborations. If you know who your target customer is, you can find more customers by aligning with the brands that they love. So for instance, if you make candles and you know that your target customer loves coffee shops, you can hook up with a local coffee shop and ask if you can sell some candles in their coffee shop. So you're gaining all of their customers that they already have, and you're getting exposed to those customers. So if you know that your customer really likes coffee shops, you're in a coffee shop and you will get more customers. So that's just one example, but it's an interesting way to think about. You get if you make good collaborations, you'll be able to find more customers. And it also helps you know where to be. So once you know who your target customer is and what they like and what their interests are, you'll be able to kind of show up wherever they are. So similar to a collaboration, if you know what type of events your customer likes to go to, if they like pop-up shops or whatever, you can kind of be there at the events, or you can pop up at their favorite spots. And that's in a physical way. And then in a more digital way, you can show up in their favorite magazines in an advertisement or with specific PR. You can be in their favorite social media platforms. You can either advertise or just really, really focus all of your efforts on a specific platform. So if you know what they like and you know what they're into, you can kind of show up there. Brand building. When you know who your target customer is, you can tune your brand to appeal to what they like. And we'll get into branding very, very soon. So I'll explain that more. But with content styles, so you can also know exactly what kind of content they're looking for if you know who your target customer is. You can know, what kind of copy really draws them in. Is it really friendly copy, or is it more serious copy? Do they want more like an authoritative stance with your brand? What are they looking for? When you know that, you'll be able to, again, kind of like tune your content to really, really appeal to them. So here's an example of how once you've figured all of that out, everything that we've talked about, you'll be able to just kind of put this in a really succinct, really easy way. So again, if anyone's like, who's your target customer? You can kind of just bring up this and be like, this is who my target customer is. So again, we have demographics and psychographics. And for me, for the purposes of this presentation, I made a fake brand, and it's an online plant company that specializes in really teaching you how to raise plants and keep them alive. So for this plant company I have, here's my target market. It's a woman, and she's aged 25 to 35, so she's a millennial. She lives in a tier 2 urban city, so that's Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Austin, Portland. She works a full-time office job. She's single. She makes about $45,000 to $65,000 a year. So there are a couple things that we can pull out of these facts. If she lives in a tier 2 city and she makes $45,000 a year, that means that she probably has a decent amount of disposable income, which means that she can use that disposable income on plants, which is great. If she works a full-time office job, we know that she might go to happy hour with her coworkers on Friday. So, which can tell us that, maybe we make a post that kind of like talks a little bit about going to happy hour. So we can use these facts to really tweak how we present ourselves and to attract our target market. In terms of psychographics, her interests are physical and mental well-being, cooking, shopping local. Her values are trendy aesthetics, environmentalism, being outdoors, activism. She has a really introverted lifestyle, but has a close group of friends. She gets a lot of her information from Instagram and TikTok, and on the weekends she hangs out with her friends and likes to spend time in the park. So all of these things that we know about her, this means that we can, again, tweak our content to appeal to that, or we can do collaborations. If it's shopping local, that means maybe we do a pop-up shop with a local business, and so wherever she may live. So all of these things give us clues on how to tweak our marketing and honestly business strategy. Okay. So now that we've identified our target market, we know who they are, we know what they like, we know what they're into. Now let's talk about branding and what branding is and why it's important. So your branding takes your business to the next level. Having a really solid brand is the difference between being a small mom and pop Pittsburgh business versus being a brand with a really strong point of view that takes you from being tiny to being very big. When people, next point, it makes your product more than just a product. It kind of turns your product into a lifestyle. When you have a strong point of view that has, a company with like a really important purpose or specific aesthetic, it kind of makes maybe that piece of pottery that you're making into more than just a piece of pottery. It allows your customers to be a part of your story. And it builds trust and customer loyalty with your customers. So, if you have a brand that's really reliable and delivers on exactly what you say you're going to deliver, that means customers are going to know that that's the kind of brand you are, and they're going to trust you more, so they're going to come back more often, and they're going to recommend you to their friends. So again, getting returning customers, that means your marketing budget is going down because you don't need to acquire them anymore. They already exist. They're just coming back, which is so, so important. But none of this can happen unless you are committed to keeping your brand consistent. Consistency is key. You have to keep all of the colors consistent. You got to keep your photography consistent. You got to keep your logo consistent. Everything must be consistent in order for this to work. So we're going to get into that soon. Okay, so how to even start identifying your brand? Start with you and start with your story. You have a huge advantage over big box stores and really, really big companies because you have a story and you have authenticity that they would kill for and that they try to conjure up all the time. You started your business for a specific reason. You're continuing to do it for a specific reason. So identify what that is and really lean into it and share that story with your customers. And then find inspiration from brands that you like. Why do you like the brands that you like? What makes you keep buying from them over and over again? Is it their aesthetic? Is it because they're consistent with maybe their customer service? What is it about them that makes you trust them and makes you really, really like them? And then apply that to your brand. Also think about how you'd like your brand to be perceived. What do you want people to say about your brand when they're referring you to their friend? What do you want to be known for? Then focus on what makes your business unique. So again, you're a small business, you have you and you have your story, but you also probably have a different way of doing things because again, you have your own process. So what is that? What is that about your company that is really unique and separates you from your competitors? And celebrate that and really focus on that and put that on blast. And then lastly, identify your company's purpose. I'm sure that you have a purpose for your company because again, starting a small business isn't easy. And you must be really passionate about what you're doing. So what is that purpose? What is the reason that you continue to do this every day and share it with the world? Know that and talk about that more. And because people want to be a part of that, people really like buying from brands with purpose. And I know that you already have one. So identify it, write it down, and really embody it and put it on blast with what your content is. So, your brand guide. We're going to talk about how to build one out. So a brand guide is basically like a PDF with a bunch of slides on it. I mean, each of these bullet points will be a slide. And it will help you communicate. Well, first of all, it will help you just get organized and have your brand in a really organized file that you can pull up and reference whenever you need it. But you can also give it to any new hires you have or any new interns you're also bringing on board, and any photographers that you might be working with or graphic designers that you might be working with. So it'll give them an idea of what your company is about, which is great because it saves a ton of time and probably a ton of frustration. If you're working with a photographer and you're like, oh yeah, just do whatever you want, and then they do whatever they want and it's not what you wanted and it does not fit your brand, like, who's at fault if you didn't tell them exactly what you wanted? So when you get that brand guide, you give that to them, be like, this is everything we're about. and you don't have to go into great detail about what you need. It just saves everybody time. Same with new hires. They identify who your target market is. It gives them the tools they need to get creative and to help you out more. So we're going to break down each of these bullet points and explain what they are. And you can use this as an outline to make your own brand guide. So you can make it on PowerPoint. I made this presentation on Canva, which is a really great resource, and I would highly recommend that you do this. So yeah, give it a shot, see what you're comfortable with, and let's get started. So let's first start with brand personality. Brand personality is a list of characteristics that describe your brand, and they can be used to identify the color palette, logo, typography, tone, etc. of your brand. So this really helps people think of your brand as a friend, or think of your brand as a person that they can trust. And it also really helps you choose what type of colors you use. So let me give you an example. Say you're like a tax company who, is helping people do something that they usually don't know how to do. So that means that your brand personality would be authoritative, probably classic, and maybe sophisticated. So that means that when you're choosing your color palette, you probably want to go with blues, which is a color that people used to think of as being really calm and being really trustworthy. So you're going to want to go with more blues. You're going to go with a classic logo, some typography that's probably not too funky, and you're going to want to talk and have your content and copy be in a more authoritative tone, because people don't know what they're doing, so they need your help. So they want to trust you, and so you will be authoritative. So that's just a really quick example of how to use these words to make a brand personality, but I would choose, 3 to 5 really descriptive words of what you think of when you think of your brand. Next, you're going to want to include your target market. So we already did a whole thing on target market, but I would include that in your brand guide. So again, a quick picture, and maybe turn those bullet points into some paragraphs to just include, so whoever's working with you or whoever is referencing this brand guide will help you, or will understand exactly who you're targeting. Next, we have mission statement. So this is where you write down your company's purpose and objectives, and it takes place in the present. It's what you're doing right now, what your purpose is right now, and why the company exists at all. So, like I said before, I created a fake brand for the purposes of this presentation, called Windowbox. And so I have here Windowbox's mission statement, and that is to make the joy of owning and caring for plants accessible to everyone. So again, we can know and take every one of those words to help identify, where the company is going, what next moves to make, who to work with next, who to hire. Mission statements and company purposes are so important for guiding companies, and they should not be left out of the brand guide. Next, try to make a mood board, which is an arrangement of images intended to evoke or project a particular style or concept. So you're going to want to just kind of play around with a mood board. Again, Canva makes it really easy to create mood boards like this that are just, they're images of how you want your brand to look and feel. Play around with it. Gather a lot of images that you can find off of Instagram, off of Pinterest. Canva has a couple pictures too. But what do you want people to think of whenever they think of your product or your brand? I have a record player here. That usually doesn't go with plants, but in this case, I want that brand to be for somebody who listens to records and appreciates them. Or maybe that really likes illustrations and modern Matisse looking illustrations as well. So just play around with it and see what comes up whenever you create a mood board. It's a really good exercise in just kind of playing around and experimenting with what you like and what your vision is for the company. Next, based off of that mood board maybe, you're going to want to choose a color palette. So a color palette is a full range of colors that are specific to your brand's identity. You're going to have primary colors and secondary colors. You can have 1 to 3 primary colors. So this is the #1 color that everyone's going to associate with your brand. It's going to be, yeah, I would stick with 1, but you could do 3 if you want. And this is going to be used in everywhere. Your logo, your social media is probably going to have the most of this. Your website is definitely going to have a lot of it. So it's used the most often. So make sure it's really representative of your brand and make sure you like it. And then you're going to want to choose some secondary colors. So you can choose 1 to 6. These are going to look really good with your primary color, your main color. These can be used in secondary logos, any marketing material that you have where you just need more than 1 color. And, business cards, flyers, your website, if you want to add some buttons, or little details anywhere, the secondary colors are what you will be using. And then also, it's just really important to have black and white in your brand guide. It seems kind of boring or obvious, but if you have them in there, you're going to need them anyway, so you might as well just incorporate them within your color palette. And you're also probably going to want to choose a black that's like a little grayer than usual, because really harsh black, which is the code 000000, is really harsh on eyes. So you're probably going to want to choose another one that fits within your brand that people are going to want to know. And that's the other thing I want to say. You need to identify your hex code colors, your hex codes, which are those numbers within each circle. So people aren't just guessing whenever they pick a green to use for your company. Again, like I said before, consistency is key. It is so important. So you want people using the exact colors that you've chosen, and that's what your hex code will give you. Next, we have logos. So, as we know, a logo is a graphic mark, emblem, symbol, or stylized name used to identify your company. You need more than 1 logo. Usually, I probably think you have a written logo, which is where it says window box and it's long and it has a little graphic next to it. These are really important to have. These are really, really great, but you definitely need more than just that, because there are some places where that just doesn't fit. For example, like your Instagram profile icon. Don't put a really long logo in a little tiny Instagram icon. That's again, just kind of bad practice. It looks kind of sloppy. So get a small logo to put where you don't need to find all places like that. So your small logo can go within business cards, or that can go into that Instagram profile picture. And then you're also going to want to have a favicon. So your favicon is where in the when you pull up your tab on your website, that little icon. So if you have Squarespace, there might be a little black box there. You don't want to do that. Again, it looks kind of sloppy. So you can change out that black box to have a little graphic or favicon. So you're going to want to make sure that you have that included. So you'll need one with your primary color in it, obviously. And then you'll need a logo in black and white, and probably the inverse of that too. Trust me, you're going to be asked. So just make sure that you have your logo in white and then your logo in black. If you go to any fairs or you're a part of any online markets or something, they might want to have your logo in just a simple black and white color. So make sure you have that ready and you're not scrambling whenever you need it, or leave it up to them to mess with your logo and change it. And then you can also have a secondary color just for fun, to include in places where you just might not want to use black or white or your primary color. Then we have typography. So this is a font that's really specific to your brand, and this will be used throughout all of your marketing. So you're going to want to use this on your website, again, on any business cards, on any flyers or marketing material that you have. You really want to stick with your font. And you can choose 1 to 2. You can have two, one as a heading font, one as a body font, or you can just choose one and have it be for everything and just change the sizes around. But again, font consistency is extremely, extremely important. It's the difference between having a sloppy brand to having a really, really, really clean brand. Next, we have photography standards. So again, this is really helpful for working with anybody who's taking content for you at all. So it could be an intern, or you could hire a photographer, which I would highly recommend, by the way. But you can, so there's a difference between product photography and lifestyle photography, both equally important. So product photography is where will live on your product page. And it will be very clean cut, very clear. Your product will be shown at every single angle, just so customers know exactly what they're getting. Less questions, makes you look more professional. And then there's lifestyle photography. So this can live on your social media or on your homepage of your website. And it just is, it's a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more contextual. So you're putting your product in context of who's using it, which will be hopefully be shown by an example of your target market, and just help people get a little bit more inspired. But they're very different, but again, equally as important. And it's good for you to identify examples so that people understand who and what you're looking for in your photography. Now let's talk about why branding matters. Why is it important that you have a brand guide and you stick with it and are extremely consistent? So, number one, it promotes company recognition. When you have really consistent messaging, color, and overall aesthetic, it makes it easy for customers to remember who you are. And that's important because it lowers your customer acquisition cost, so you're saving money. And also, it just helps you be, again, a brand and something that people talk about and remember and kind of go to. I think a really good example of this locally is Millie's. Millie's has that hot pink. They have it on their buildings. They have it in their logo. They have it floor to ceiling in their store. Everybody knows that pink. And it means once you see that pink, you know that there's ice cream. And who doesn't love that, right? So like they are killing it because their brand is so incredibly consistent. And it's something that's fun and something that's exciting and something that tastes really good. People know what to expect. So I think that Millie's is a really great example of a small business that has impeccable branding, which means that you can do it too. It's not impossible. You don't need a huge branding agency to help you with this. You can do it. Branding also builds trust. So from a basic level, customers are going to gravitate towards you if you look credible and you look like you know what you're doing and you look like you can deliver on what you're selling. And you're not going to take like 12 days to ship something and all of that stuff. If you look like you can handle keeping a brand solid, I think there's a psychological factor in there with other customers that they're going to want to be a part of your brand and they're going to know to trust you. Branding helps you create customer loyalty. Again, people want to be a part of something that's a little bit bigger than just buying a product. And they want to tell a story about the product that they bought. They want to get excited. And so if they have a really good experience with your brand and they really like your story and your product, they're going to want to come back. And again, that lowers your customer acquisition cost. And they can kind of become referrals for their friends and refer you to people that they care about, which again, free marketing and advertising, and that's what we always need, right? And lastly, it helps you make better decisions. So some examples would be if you're approached by a brand and they want to do a collaboration, you ask yourself, does this company fit within my brand? And if they don't work with them. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Find somebody else who fits your brand better and who you will get more out of. Also, how can I pivot my company if needed? You know, if God forbid something else happens, like a global pandemic, and you need to, for some reason, pivot your product, pivot your company, you kind of already have a brand built out, so it can be a bit of a guiding light of how to take it without totally alienating your customers and them being like, wait, I thought you were doing this, but now you're doing this. It's like, no, if you stick within your brand, they're going to be able to go with you on that journey. Okay, so say you did all of this, you've identified your target customer, you're ready to start building your brand, you're ready to commit to keeping brand consistency. What are your next steps? So after you've taken your notes from this presentation, start identifying who your target market is. Write down their demographics, write down their psychographics, start identifying some people who you think are really great examples of that, and start to get that on paper, and start to do some digging, and start to do some research on who they are, start to send out some surveys. And then once you finally identified them, and you've pressure tested them, build out your brand guide to appeal to the target customer that you've just identified. So start to make a PDF, make it on Canva, make it on PowerPoint, and build out that brand guide. Each slide is a separate thing. So after you've finalized your brand, start to make sure that the pricing that you have and your current business strategy, what you're doing right now, is aligned with your target customer and brand. So an example of this would be, say your pricing is like really, really high. You know, maybe you have a handmade product and it's high for a very good reason. Make sure that your target market can afford that, and make sure that your branding is elevated enough to accommodate for that pricing. Just kind of start to make sure everything works and everything kind of fits together. That's really, really important. Then, lastly, update your social media, website, and all other marketing materials using your brand guidelines. So make sure that all of your favicon is updated on the website, and make sure that your Instagram profile pictures include your new small logo, and make sure going forward all photography matches the photography standards that you have in your guidelines. So yeah, and then you can kind of start taking things off. You can start to get creative about what collaborations you do or where you advertise. And maybe the collaborations you do are really unexpected, but fit somehow perfectly within your brand. I feel like, creativity loves constraint. Think of your brand as like a bit of a constraint, and same with your target customer. And it's not, you have some guidelines to follow now, and you have specific people to appeal to. So now you can do that. And then that's it. That's all I have for you. So if you have any hesitation or have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me at madelinefarina@gmail.com. All right. Thank you so much.